You're waiting for an elevator, maybe 20 seconds. That's it. The doors are closed, nothing is happening. And yet, before you've even thought about it, your hand starts moving toward your pocket. You take out your phone. You weren't actually looking for anything. You just didn't want to stand there for 20 seconds with nothing happening. And that's a strange thing to notice, because having nothing to do is not the same as being uncomfortable with having nothing to do. Sometimes the empty moment itself feels like something we need to change. So why does an empty moment sometimes feel uncomfortable enough that we immediately want to change it? Maybe the obvious answer is boredom. But boredom doesn't quite explain it. You can be bored and still be comfortable. You can also have nothing to do for 20 seconds and feel an almost automatic need to fill the space. That's where the phone becomes interesting. Not because phones are inherently bad, because they make escape incredibly easy. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to find something. You don't have to make a plan. You just tap. The moment changes. The phone may not create the discomfort. It makes escaping the discomfort almost effortless. And that distinction matters, because people were uncomfortable with unoccupied time long before smartphones existed. In 2014, Timothy Wilson and colleagues published a paper called Just Think: The Challenges of the Disengaged Mind. The paper included 11 studies examining what happens when people are left alone with their thoughts and without much else to occupy them. In one experiment, participants could choose to administer a mild electric shock to themselves. Among the men in that particular experiment, 12 of 18, 67%, gave themselves at least one shock. Among the women, 6 of 24, 25% did. That does not mean 67% of people would rather be shocked than bored. And the study was not about smartphones. Its narrower point is more useful here. The discomfort of having nothing to do did not begin with the phone. The human mind has never been perfectly comfortable with unoccupied attention. And newer research doesn't give us a simple answer either. A 2023 systematic review, a meta-analysis, looked across 59 empirical studies and found a positive association between boredom and digital media use, with a stronger association for problematic digital media use. But most of those studies were cross-sectional. So we can't simply say boredom causes phone use, or that phone use causes boredom. The relationship may run in both directions. So what is different now? Maybe it's not that we suddenly need more stimulation. Maybe it's that the exit is always there. Imagine the same 20 seconds without a phone. The discomfort appears. Nothing happens. Maybe you look around. Maybe you think about something. Maybe the feeling passes on its own. Now put the phone back in your hand. The discomfort appears. You tap. The feeling changes. Nothing dramatic happened, but the second version never asks you to find out what happens if you leave the moment alone. And maybe that's the deeper shift. Not necessarily that we become more bored. Perhaps we become less familiar with allowing a moment to remain unchanged. The pattern can be almost invisible. Empty moment, tiny discomfort, automatic reach, instant change. You weren't necessarily looking for information. You weren't necessarily looking for entertainment. You just wanted the moment to feel different. And once that option is available almost instantly, maybe we begin to expect it. An uncomfortable moment doesn't have to be endured. it can be changed right away. That doesn't make stimulation bad. Music can make a walk better. A message can matter. A video can be genuinely enjoyable. The difference is between choosing something because you want it and reaching for something because the moment feels slightly uncomfortable and you know you can make that feeling disappear. Over time, perhaps that makes an unclaimed moment feel strangely unfinished. Not because something is actually missing, but because we're accustomed to having somewhere for our attention to go. And this may be why an empty moment can feel more uncomfortable than its actual size would suggest. It's only 20 seconds. Nothing is wrong. Nobody needs anything. Nothing needs to be solved. But you're used to being able to change the experience immediately. So the absence of something to do can start to feel like something that needs doing. That's the broader implication. Not that every moment has to be productive. Not that technology is ruining our lives. Just that when every gap has an immediate exit, we may become less familiar with moments that ask nothing from our attention. And those moments are everywhere. Waiting for an elevator, standing in line, sitting on a train, eating alone. Small pieces of time that used to be allowed to remain exactly as they were. Maybe we don't need to make them better. Maybe they only feel unfinished because we've become accustomed to changing them. So imagine the elevator again. The doors are still closed. Your hand moves toward your pocket. And this time, you notice it. You don't have to resist it. You don't have to obey it either. The point isn't to win. Maybe you still reach for your phone, that's fine. But for a moment, you know what the impulse is asking for. Not necessarily information, not necessarily entertainment. Just a change in the moment. And maybe the moment doesn't need to be changed. The elevator arrives, the doors open, you step inside. The 20 seconds are over. Nothing happened. And maybe that's all they needed to do. You can simply be there.